This is almost ending. And I'm gonna put it on Twitter, let people know, and I'm gonna put it on Toni Morrison's Twitter as well. There are people who are interested in this kind of content. I'm just gonna log in there and put this on Twitter. Twitter, let's see, Toni Morrison, Tara Baby, tweet, there we go. This is now chapter 9. In chapter 9, we go back to Jadine and Son. Chapter 8 focused only on the other characters. It focused only on Margaret and Valerian. It focused on the butler, Sydney. He wanted to know, am I getting fired with all of this? Am I out of a job because my wife punched the owner of the house? And then we hear Valerian's pain in chapter 8, how painful it is for him to realize that he didn't know his own son, he didn't know his own wife. Now chapter 9 returns to Jadine. Jadine and Son are now, because Son insisted, they went to Florida. And now she's asking him about the things he said about this place, how this place was. He said, there's 90 houses, there are this many people, and he made it seem like the place was something that the place is not. Where are the 90 houses? I see 4, asked Jadine, looking around. They're here. Where? Spread out. Folks don't live all crunched up together in Ella. Come on, girl. He picked up the luggage and, grinning like a groom, led her up the steps. A frame door was open to the still March morning. They both stood in front of a screen door through which they could see a man sitting at a table with his back to them. They could see a man sitting at a table with his back to them. Is this the man they went there to see? All of these characters, they have a backstory. Some of the stories we didn't get to see until later on. But this is a part of the story, the backstory for Son, aka William Green, that we already know. We know that he had a friend named Soldier, and this is a friend he wanted to connect with again, and that's why he's in Elo in Florida. This is one of the reasons why he went there. Is this him? Let's see. Son didn't knock or move. He simply looked at the back of the man's head. Slowly the man turned his head and stared at them. Then he got up from the table. Son opened the screen door and stepped in with Jadine just behind him. He didn't move closer to the man. He just stopped and smiled. The man did not speak and did not smile. He kept on staring. Then he raised his hands, clenching them into fists, and began to jump up and down on both feet, stamping the floor like a kid jumping rope. Son was laughing soundlessly. A woman ran in, but the man kept on jumping, pounding the floor. The woman looked at Son and Jadine with a little confused smile. The man jumped higher and faster. Son kept watching and laughing. Finally, when the stamping shook a lamp to the table's edge and a window banged down, all the children were peering in the doorway. The man shouted at the top of his lungs, "Son, son," to the beat of his crazy feet, and kept on until Son grabbed his head and pressed it into his chest. "It's me, Soldier! It's me!" So it is Soldier that they came to see. And Soldier hadn't seen him in quite some time. But the one thing that sediments their relationship is that they have history of many, many years together as friends, of many, many years when they were into the same adventures. And that kind of thing you can't just ignore. So even if at first he may not remember this guy, it will come back to him eventually. Soldier wrenched away, looked at him in the face, then ran to the back window. "Wahoo, wahoo," he shouted, and came back to march 4 steps around the room. 2 men came to the front door and looked in at the marcher, and then at the visitors. "Soldiers clowning," said the woman. "Soldiers clowning," said the children. "Good God Almighty, that's Son!" whispered one of the men, and then it stopped. Son and Soldier hit each other on the head, the hands, the shoulders. "Who bought you them skinny shoes? And where's your hair?" He asked her if she would mind staying at Soldier's house with his wife, Ellen, while he went to see his father. Jadine demurred. She had run out of conversation with Ellen 10 minutes after it started. Now, the reality of this, let us be 100% realistic here, and these characters, they have realistic features. The veracity of their speech, their backstory. So our 2 protagonists, Jadine and Son, the 2 protagonists of the story, they come from completely different walks of life, which doesn't mean that they can't love each other, but it does mean that they have to adjust to each other's worlds. And Jadine is having a little bit of a hard time because this is not the kind of place that she's used to. She lived in France, she lived in New York, and she lived in the Caribbean with her aunt and uncle. And she's a refined woman, whereas Son is a very simple man. He's very smart, he's creative, he's incredibly caring, but he also has a side that is so different from her that sometimes these 2 things collide, even though they love each other. But she's having a hard time adjusting with his friends. Could she understand that? She said yes, out in Soldier's yard near the mimosa. But she didn't understand at all. No more. I had to turn on the heater for my feet. No more than she understood the language he was using when he talked to Soldier, and Drake and Ellen and the others stopped by. Her being shunted off with Ellen and the children while the men grouped up on the porch and after greeting ignored her, or why he seemed so shocked and grateful at the same time by news that some woman named Brown, Sarah or Sally or Sadie, from the way they pronounced it, she couldn't tell, was dead. But she agreed. God, Allah. He left her there and walked along to the house he was born in. The yellow brick front looked tiny. It had seemed so large and sturdy compared to Sutterfield shack he and Cheyenne had, so now he's going back to his roots. He's going back to his roots. And of course, this going back to his roots is going to mean that he's going to revisit. He's going to revisit parts of his life, like the house he grew up in, like the people that he used to know. All of this he's going to go back to. And he's going to very certainly feel some sort of, I don't want to say nostalgia, but yeah, nostalgia. He will feel this nostalgia. And all of this nostalgia is what takes him back to where he was a different person from who he is now. Often enough, when people visit places where they used to live, when they shy away from their reality and they go back to where they used to live, they go back to hang out with friends they used to hang out with and hang out in the streets where they used to play. Often enough, what happens is a part of themselves comes back. And maybe in this case, it's the good part of Sun that is coming back. So he went into the house he grew up in. And this is where I'm leaving the chapter. I'm almost like hesitant to finish reading this just because it's such a special book.